Just bear with me. I got to do a couple of button clicks before we can actually go live here. So, how we doing this morning? How are we doing? Who wants to share something with us, whether it's good, it's bad, it's turning your world upside down in the real estate world? What's going on? What do we have? Let's go right into a deal. Who's got something going funky on a deal? Something they learned, an experience share for the group? What do we have this morning? No twists and turns on our transactions. Everything's just moving smooth. We can get right into what I had teed up for us today, then, if nobody's got anything going weird on their deals. Let me just share um, my screen here.
I have something, Steve. Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand here.
Oh, apparently you got to go to which button was it, guys? The reactions button in order to share. So go ahead, Martin.
All right, so been working on this deal for a while now. My buyer decided to switch lenders, and so I've been calling this lender a couple times, and hasn't been getting back to me. Nothing like that. So I finally called the buyer, said, "Hey, listen, what's going on with your lender? I need to know what's going on with the deal." And his reaction was, "Why do you need to talk to my lender? He doesn't want to talk to you." End of quote. I'm like, just which totally caught me off guard. Finally got a hold of the lender, text me. Blender says, I need, and I've never had this happen, permission from the buyer to talk to him. I'm like, very
Yeah,
odd.
look.
So go ahead.
Yeah, is that just the question? Kind of, hey, this just felt weird.
Yeah, like, well, no, it's just like I've never had to have permission from any bank say, hey, listen, I'm the buyer's agent, just a report what's going on with everything.
Sure.
So I ended up talking to Jay, and we made a disclosure saying, hey, listen, if you don't want me to talk to your lender, that's fine. If everything's to be gone through you, sign this. I'm not being held responsible, and Rovi Real's not being held responsible if anything happens, since you don't want us to communicate. Needless to say, after he's got that, all of a sudden I'm getting emails from everybody that, hey, it's this is what's going on with the deal.
And it's
Which
not good.
still, I think there's some weird stuff going on in there. I don't have the whole the whole picture. It just, like I said, just very something odd that it's never happened, where it's like the buyer doesn't even want me to talk to the lender.
Yeah, and this is the buyer is your client. It's not like you're on the
Correct.
listing side of
Yes.
this deal. Yeah, yeah, that's very odd. I don't know why that situation would be, and I'd be very concerned. When you talk to your buyer, what's his response on why he wouldn't want you talking to his lender?
He doesn't have one.
Okay,
He feels I don't need to talk to his lender, because the first lender he used, I did introduce. He did not like any, like, why do you like to give this paperwork in? Why do I have to do this? And mind you, last time he bought a house was probably 20 years ago. So yeah, there's paperwork that needs to be involved. Try to explain it to him. The lender did ask for him to do a few things to get the loan. He didn't like that either. He always tried to get his lawyer involved. And even, the few times we spoke with the lawyer on a conference call, all three of us, lender, buyer, me, the lawyer was, that's what they need for you to get the loan. Do it. It was never like, we're not asking for anything crazy or anything, outrageous. It's normal stuff. And he's the type of person who needs to fight you on every single thing, no matter how small it is.
hey, this is a great topic. I feel like this happened a few times. When I was in production, and I'm just curious if anybody on the call has had this happen recently, would like to share how they handled it. Anybody want to chime in? Have you had a buyer that the buyer did not want you talking to the lender? Lauren.
So, not a recent experience, but I have experienced it. And usually it comes down to some sort of stress, anxiety, nerves on the buyer side that, maybe they've painted this picture that they're in a really good position, gonna be no problems at all. And then when any of that is questioned, right, they themselves start to get self-conscious or something around the whole situation, um, almost like feel bad about it that it's not as perfect maybe as the picture they had painted. And so then they just start to build that wall, right? And so I think just conversations like, hey, I deal with every situation, right? Whatever it is that you're up against, it's not something that we haven't seen before. Like, let me help. Let me help relieve some of the stress, anxiety that you're probably feeling because most people do, right? Especially if you're comparing to a previous experience with it, and now the experience that you're having is different. Um, you oftentimes can't help but do that comparing, and you just need somebody there to know that you have support and that you're not total like crap for not being maybe in a perfect position.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's probably one of the most common things is when something financially is just maybe a little bit off and the buyer is getting a little nervous. Um, I think the few times that I've had it happen to me is where I felt like the buyer just wasn't comfortable with me. I don't know if they thought I was going to be released all of their financials and really understand their financial position. I think sometimes that could be the concern of the buyer is like, hey, my financials are none of your business. And, really, I think the conversation with the buyer at that point is like, I'm not trying to understand your exact financial position. I just want to understand the overall situation that we're dealing with and any, timelines that I might need to adjust or communication that I might need to have with the other side. So, anybody else want to chime in? Have you dealt with this, and how did you handle that conversation? But I think Lauren's onto it. I think it is something a lot of times is just going wrong with that buyer, or something's off, and they're getting a little bit nervous and shutting down. In this case, it sounds more like this happened right off the rip.
Correct.
So, yeah. Oh, there's your handsome face. um, so anybody else who wants to chime in? Who's had this happen? Or hey, if you even if you haven't, what are your thoughts on how you'd handle it? I mean, my initial thought with having these conversations is trying to make sure, Adam, I saw your hand, I'll get back to it. Trying to make sure that the buyer understands how you're going to help them. Why isn't it an advantage if you can get a dialogue going with that lender, right? Versus you just want to be involved or a nosy Nelly or something like that. Hey, what are the advantages of me having a direct dialogue with the lender? Right. So, hey, there could be some situations where if I can get a good dialogue going with the lender, that it's going to help me get an offer accepted. Right. So, you or me and the lender are going to work together to make sure that we're on the same page, so that when we go to writing offers stage, right, we've got dialogue, we're in communication. I'm going to be able to leverage that relationship now to get a conversation going with the listing agent to show how strong you are. Right. So, I just want to build some rapport with your lender to help us down the road, right? That might be one of the advantages of me having a dialogue going, right? And then, hey, there's going to be some situations throughout the transaction that are going to require some communication between myself and the lender, whether that's getting the appraisal ordered, or if the other side's asking me what's going on with the ordering of the appraisal. Um, so those are some of the things that I would think you just going to want to kind of note to the buyer that if this relationship is good and solid and I've got this rapport going, it's going to help us down the road. Martin.
The other issue with him from the beginning was he wanted to do a rehab loan. And he just thinks the rules do not apply to him. And he's like, I'm a general contractor. I'm going to be the general contractor. I'm like, you really can't be the general contractor. They're not going to do that. I mean, those loans, you have to hire somebody else. And of course, that's, BS, blah, 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 blah. Just, everything has to be his way or the highway with him. He's just a tough nut to crack. And I mean, there's times where he understands that, we're here to help him, but most of the time it's like it has to be, he's old school from one of the hill towns type of mentality. And I mean, don't mean to like, be judgy, but that's, that's what he is. Um,
Adam, I saw your hand up. Did you have a comment?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think it a lot of times comes down to the self-confidence on getting financials released. So having the conversation about how, without knowing anything about your financial situation, I can still have some great communication with buyers, listing agents to get your offer accepted. And then, of course, the critical deadlines. Need to know when appraisal's ordered. I need to know when you're clear to close, so we're not missing extensions. And just explaining that, I could care less about your credit score. I'm not going to know that. I'm not going to know your financial information. I just need to know some deadlines are going to be hit, and it's going to help me get your offer accepted. So you kind of went over that, but it could be a really good financial situation, or it could be a really bad financial situation. If they think you're going to understand that, then that's probably potentially why they're being a little bit resistant. But it sounds like it's just difficult flying as well.
The other thing that we should discuss while we're on this topic is a similar situation when you are the listing agent, right? Because I think it's just as important to have some good rapport going with the buyer's lender when you're on the listing side. And that's got to start right from the rip. If you're trying to, in the middle of a negotiation or in the middle of a transaction, trying to get access to the buyer's lender, we can probably get some pushback. But if we set the expectation up front as a listing agent, right, when the offer comes in, you're having a conversation with the buyer's agent. Hey, you know what? I'd love to have a conversation with the buyer's lender, just to kind of understand how long have they been working together, what documents have been pulled, what is the expectation on the timeline, right? So just because it's not your buyer doesn't mean you shouldn't be having a conversation with that lender. Right. So not only on the buy side, should you be having a good relationship, but on the listing side, especially when you're in a multiple offer situation. But even if there's just one offer, I want to have a conversation with that lender, right? How long have you been doing this? How many loans did you close in the last 12 months? We've never worked together. How do you like to work? How do you like to communicate? We talked about modes of communication the other day on this call. Are you a text person? Do you like emails? Do you like phone calls? Because there's going to be a time during the transaction where we're probably going to need to get in touch. So even when you're on the listing side, I think it's really important to have that conversation. And you could have one offer on the table and you have a conversation with the lender and the lender's like, I don't even know who that buyer is. Now we got some red flags. Right. And maybe that's just, hey, we're going to take 24 to 48 hours before we accept the offer that we got on the table if it's our only offer. But you know what? Let's just do a little bit more due diligence before we go under agreement. We pull this from any other buyer coming to the table because we've got an accepted offer with this buyer that the listing agent, didn't vet properly. Anybody want to chat on this? If we've got maybe an experienced listing agent wants to just chat about that dialogue. I think this part of the listing side is really, really important. And I don't know how many listing agents are having that conversation with the buyer's lender.
I don't know how to raise my hand, Steve.
You're good. Go for it. It's under
Okay.
reactions. It's a little difficult to find. But
Oh,
under
okay.
reactions, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thanks.
Yep.
I agree with your point completely as far as listing agent goes. When I work with buyers, when I email my offer, I include my lender in the email and provide their contact information to the listing agent. Especially if we're trying to accomplish like a quick closing, or if we're waiving appraisal or offering an appraisal gap or anything like that, which is out of the ordinary. So that way the listing agent can ask questions if they need, and that way they know that we've already explained to our lender the terms that we're reaching to meet, right? So as a listing agent, I love nothing more than when a buyer's agent provides all of that to me. So like you said, you can do your due diligence, because it's not just about getting them the number that they want. It's meeting those deadlines. And there's nothing worse than casual lenders who are like, oh, we'll just ask for an extension, even though our offer was offering a 25-day closing, which is why the seller accepted it, because they're trying to get moved, So I agree with you. Communication is everything. And, as far as your buyer goes, just setting clear expectations in that initial buyer consult and explaining to them, like, your goal is to help them fulfill their goals. So if they're not going to give you the tools you need to do that, thank you, next. Like, how can you work with somebody who works against their success?
Yeah, I think as we're having this conversation, Martin, I think part of it might have even been, on the next one, if you ever get into pushback, not only do I need to talk to your lender, right? But my expectation is the listing agent on the other side is going to want to talk to your lender, right? Everybody wants to feel comfortable that this deal is moving forward. Nobody's looking to, understand your exact financial position. There just needs to be a comfort level that we've got ourselves a strong deal here. So setting the expectations that's not just me, right? It's very probable that the listing agent's going to be reaching out and want to have a conversation and understand, where we're at in the process. Anybody want to maybe tell a story around this or anything weird happening on a transaction that would be a good share around these conversations? To me, on the listing side, it was always nerve-wracking when you call that lender and they're like, who? Which buyer? Like, that's not a good sign. I have not done my homework on that. Now, do I expect every lender to know all the details on everybody that they've pre-approved, especially the ones that are doing a lot of business? No, right? But once you've got a buyer to that point where they are writing offers and they are a strong buyer and docs are in, you should probably at least know their name. Any other thoughts on this topic? All right. Great share, Martin. Thanks for bringing that one. Does anybody have anything else they want to chat about? A unique experience going on one of their deals, or maybe something that you learned from a deal, even if it's not, hey, I've got an issue here. It's just, hey, this just happened and I wanted to share it because it could save somebody else from going through some headaches. All right, if we don't have anything on the floor, let me get back to the share that I had. I wanted to continue our conversation with some of the KCM data. We finished up yesterday. I'm assuming you guys can all see the screen, yeah? We finished up yesterday with regards to the buyer survey that NAR did and what do buyers want. And so I wanted to come at it from the seller side today. This is kind of in order what the seller is expecting out of their agent. So the number one factor that they were looking for was help marketing to potential buyers, right? And so when you're going into these listing presentations, having a strong marketing presentation is obviously going to be super critical. Do you have examples of the photography? Do you have examples of the videography, of drone work, of staging work that you've done? Right? These are the types of things that you should be able to demonstrate at a listing presentation. So we're trying to build rapport. Pricing is important, right? But understanding the marketing, the sellers are saying, according to this survey, that's the number one thing that they're concerned about, followed closely by help pricing the home competitively. And we've talked pretty extensively on this call about the pricing strategies that you guys can use. So did anybody want to comment on this slide or have any questions? Anybody doing anything unique at a listing appointment regarding how they are showing off their marketing? I think obviously, having a flip book or something digital where we can actually show, hey, here's something that I just listed in your market. Here's something that I just listed in a similar price point. Here's how we marketed it. This is what we got for views, right? Are you using some sort of a marketing engine where you've got data behind the marketing that you did? All right. Next thing was expired listings. So we talked about the first day of the new year being the most likely time that properties are going to expire, where you're going to have the most. But here's kind of a look at what actually happened first week of 2024 versus the first week of 2025, you had 6,000 more expireds. And then this was an interesting stat that they put out there, the window of opportunity, the average days before relisting. Okay, so this is the 2024 data. Overall average days to relist was 53, right? So if a property expired on December 31st, you're talking middle of February on average before they relist that property. And geez, almost twice as long when they're relisting with a different agent, 80 days versus 41 if they're relisting with the same agent. Hey, let's just wait a month. Let's refresh something, let's come back on the market in February versus, hey, you know what? We're going to take it off for this winter time. We're going to rethink this. Maybe we're going to interview a few agents, but with 80 days, that means, what are we at? I don't know, 35 days into the new year. We still got about 50 days, so almost 2 months of time for you guys to be reaching out, talking to expireds, talking to these people that go try and get that inventory to try and bring it back to market with a different approach. So those are some big windows of opportunity here in the next few months. And obviously, this is something that you'd want to show if you are competing against that person just relisting with the same agent. Hey, I can appreciate you wanted to give that agent another shot, but here's the data, right? Most of the time, the new agent coming in with a fresh look is going to get the job done significantly faster. So that's average days to sell once it's relisted with a new agent. Average days 23 versus 46 of relisting with the same agent. So if you are going after expireds, this is data that you should be presenting. I'm sure that the previous agent is trying to get that property relisted. Have this data and use it to your advantage. What's this one? Most of the relisted homes have sold. So this is the percent that sell after relisting with a new agent, 71%. And then 51 after relisting with the same agent. So sellers had a 37.7 better chance of selling if they relisted with a different agent. So do we think this kind of data could help if we're going after these listings and trying to say, hey, you should make a change here. Get some fresh eyes on this. Get my fresh approach on this. Don't just stay status quo. Let me pause there for a little bit. Anybody want to chat to this? Is anybody using this data? Can this help? What are we thinking? Who's actually doing some expired work and having these conversations? I want to chat on this.
I have started to reach out to a couple of expired listings, so I haven't used this data yet, but it will definitely come in handy. Thanks for sharing, Steve.
You're welcome. Right, so have your normal listing presentation. Definitely want to spotlight the marketing that you're going to bring to the table, but maybe just using a little bit of this data just to put a little bit of doubt about relisting with that same agent. Have a couple of extra slides. Hey, just wanted to show you the data. I really think a fresh set of eyes, fresh marketing approach is going to be the way to go. I think there's a couple more slides in here. Was that it? That might have been it. I thought there was a little bit more data for you guys, but any other thoughts around expireds or canceled or withdrawns? I think there's also a big opportunity to have the conversation with the previous agent. Why did it expire? How did it go? Did you plan on relisting it? Right? And offering maybe some sort of referral fee for some information that they're willing to share. As far as this data, I'm just seeing a comment here. We're getting this data from KCM, that's Keeping Current Matters. I think their subscription service is like $19 a month. And every month they put out some great data. They put out some great social media shareables. They do a deep dive weekly on the market. So that's keepingcurrentmatters.com. All right, if we don't have anything else, we will wrap it up like we always do with a look at the upcoming training. Let me share that for you. Get that off of my screen. So what do we have here? Geez, we've got 7 different opportunities for training today. Trends and Tactics Mastermind at 11 a.m., Better Branding at noon, Geo Farming Mastermind at 1, Psychology of Driven Sales at 1 as well, Real YouTube Mastermind at 2 o'clock, an Attraction Accelerator, and then a couple of different Attraction Accelerators. So obviously, we run a team at Real Broker. If you are not at Real Broker and wanted access to some of these trainings, please don't hesitate to reach out and we can get you a registration link so that you can take this. Our trainings are open to any agent at any brokerage. So we will wrap it up with that. Appreciate you guys joining us this Tuesday morning. Have yourselves a great Tuesday, and we will get back after it again tomorrow morning. Take care.